Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Commio webinar, Cloud Communications Industry Briefing. We do these every month. We're really excited to have everybody with us today because we're joined by Mary Clark, who is Numeracle's president and COO. Mary, welcome in.
Thanks so much, Tim. Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited because we want to introduce you to branded calling and Numeracle. Mary and her entire team have helped us. We're working together to offer this product out to the marketplace. You guys are a little bit early. We're not quite ready to sell it to you yet, but all the technical parts exist. We're working on how to get you started on it. We're really excited about what it can do. We actually have examples that we can generate with the mobile operators that do support it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're going to kind of go through what it is, how it works, what problems it's trying to solve, and what it actually does solve, and then open it up to questions. So definitely get those questions ready. We are recording the session. We will send the video out when we're done, probably later today or early tomorrow. And by the way, when I send those emails, they always come from me. So if you have questions, reply, say, hey, Tim, what about this? What about that? I'll get it to the right people and we'll get those questions answered. And obviously you can share the recording with anybody else that you'd like. So just to reiterate, the topic today, we're going to be about 30 minutes or so, is at last, get your calls branded and answered. And I put this huge, red stop sign here, Mary, on purpose, because one of the great things about this technology is we can finally have a solution to stopping spam likely showing up on our phones. And
yeah, finally.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So we're really excited to kind of share this with you. So let's go ahead and dive in and really sort of talk through kind of what problems this new technology branded calling is solving. And the first thing is, Mary, you'll agree with me that identity fraud continues to be a problem. Spam likely calls continues to be a problem. And a lot of these calls end up on some of the more vulnerable, older folks in our community that are taken in by the ability to spoof numbers. There's nothing any of us can do about it. And it's been frustrating. And you see just by these numbers how much of an impact it's making out there.
Yeah, what I find fascinating about looking at this is that increase of 12% since 21. Seems low to me when you think about the total revenue that's been lost is 38 billion, almost 39 billion since 2020. It just seems incredible. But that's really what we're getting at here. It's how do we prevent that?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because we all have one of these, and it's and we look at it and we're like, I don't trust it, right? Like I don't want to ever pick up the phone. And every text message is somebody trying to get money out of me. It feels that way anyway. And and the only solution today, you'd probably agree, Mary, right? Is like I got to add the most important people in my life, the most important businesses I do business with, into my contacts, or they're not going to get to.
That's right. And you can't make that entirely universal, because then somebody's going to call you and be like, I really needed to answer that call. And that's really, how do we cut that wheat from the chaff to make it so that you do feel confident when it does say who it is?
Yes.
I'm going to want to answer that phone. I'm going to want to answer that call because I actually trust what I'm looking at.
Yeah. I mean, example of that too, last year, my mother-in-law, she's 83, she got a message on her computer, which led her to sort of engage. And all of a sudden her cell phone rang, and it said that it was Microsoft calling her.
Yeah.
And she spent 4 hours on the phone with them, gave her banking information, lost about $300, but we got it back. But that really sort of sent a shockwave through the family. Like, all right, guys, this is a challenge.
No, it happened to me. I had a text message come through it said Bank of America. Right. And then I had a phone call come through and it said BOA.
Yep. Almost
right on the heels of it. And I'm in the business. So I'm like, okay, let's just see how far they want to go with this. Let's see what they know about me. Let's see. Right. So I played along, but they had almost my street address correct. They had a little bit of information about me, and they wanted desperately for me to give them information about, my balance. And it was fascinating, but they had, they're using every channel that they can. I go way back to the beginning of mobile technology when, we coined the phrase, really, you can't get ahead of the fraudster. The fraudster is always going to be ahead. Right. And, and all we've done now is just make it so that it's even more challenging to get ahead of it, and so that's really what this is all about is trying to put something in place that's going to put in place the ring fence that's going to stop the proliferation of this fraud, at least via the voice channel, is the key.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We
as
did
it was, I was, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was sorry. We did a
Yeah.
survey in about a year ago in May, and we specifically asked consumers here in the United States, what happens when you get a call? How often do you get calls? We had a really good statistical response of it. And what we found so fascinating was really, the brand perception is so negative.
Yeah.
We have a long way to go to build that trust back up in the consumer, and we need to do it the right way from the get-go here. And
Yeah.
I think that's really what the process of delivering the branded calling and the ecosystem that we'll talk about here in a few minutes is really attempting to do, is put in place a structure that, any participant, presuming they agree to the rules, is able to participate, and you can then have this confidence of, okay, this is what it looks like. We want to, talk to brands and have, through the partnership with you, help your brands understand. You can start promoting this to your end user to say, look, if it looks like this, answer it. If it doesn't, don't answer it.
Right.
Right. I mean, and that's really one of the opportunities that can exist with this.
Yeah,
So it's
sure.
incredible. But that 69%, say the brands associated with it is just, this is absolutely brand safety and brand value. Absolutely. So it's critical.
Yeah. And really, I mean, again, we don't blame anybody for these perceptions. It's completely understandable. I mean, I counted this morning, I had 6 calls from unknown numbers that I just let them roll to voicemail. And we're getting bombarded.
Yeah, I haven't even looked today. I know I've gotten at least 4. Yeah. And that's just me just guessing.
And it's funny too, because I feel like we deal with people too. I'm a marketing guy, so I deal with people like, I can't believe you emailed me. You don't have permission. It's like, one email. And I'm like, guy, I get like 8 calls on this thing every day that I don't recognize, and I just sort of slough it off. But it's understandable why people get very emotionally, upset about this stuff, and it just feels like they're under siege.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's important to talk a little bit, Mary, about the technical limitations. So, caller ID and CNAME, for instance, like they're all good, but they are vulnerable, and there was a reason why we left this vulnerability in this technology. Because if you think about it, like you have an 800 number, even a local 10-digit number coming out of an office building. Well, you want to be able to put your brand name on that call, right? And you might even want to put, whatever, Acme Corp support. You want that to show up on the handset when it goes through. We've all seen it even on our old phones before cell phones existed. So it actually made sense to have that loophole available. But it also just made it incredibly simple to forge whatever we want there and to impersonate all the phone number as well as the name of the company. So that just erodes trust. And of course, as you said, the criminals are always going to be 5 steps ahead of the technology.
Always. Yeah. Yeah.
And here's an important bullet here, guys. No oversight. There's no policy. There's no vetting today, until what we're going to talk to you guys about today, which is super exciting. There finally is all of those things coming to play this year, and making a solution available that actually works. So again, callers have no control over their brand identity. Users see caller name only at best, and again, don't trust it. Yeah, and they don't trust it.
Yeah.
So that brings us to a new solution. So we're really excited, again, working with Numeracle on the back end with this, where we've come together to offer the new product for branded calling. We're calling SignatureCalling. And I like that name because as a business, you want to basically be like signing every call that you place with, this is me, you can trust me. It's just as good to me as signing a contract. I'm making a contract with you as the end user that I am who I say I am. I'm able to stamp, you can see it right on the right, like, the brand name, you see the number that's calling you, look at that little check mark. It's a verified number that's been registered with that brand. You can see in this case, this is a literal example that came through T-Mobile. So T-Mobile is saying this is a verified business call. And look, it's the support system here at Commio. We actually are, when we place calls to the mobile carriers that support this today, this is what actually shows up. We're able to say, if it's a member of our support team calling, it'll say support. If it's a member of the billing team, it'll say, I forget what it says actually, if it's billing. But we have, I think, 4 of those set up right now from different extensions in our building, right? It's not really a building, right? It's a VoIP system. We know how it is, but
Come
pretend
on,
it's a
it's a
building.
building.
Okay, it's a
You're still
building.
somewhere.
Fine. Sorry. And then look at that huge logo. So, by the way,
Yeah.
these are all things that I had to provide. I worked with our tech team when they had to submit it for vetting for our brand. We had to give, and we'll talk about this in a minute. There's a lot of information you have to provide to prove you are
Mhm.
who you say you are. It goes into, you could talk into it as well. It goes into a central place where all of it is stored and vetted and verified. And only after it goes through all the KYC, know your customer steps, and everything is locked in, can you then be approved by the mobile carriers and then be able to display this information. Um, and again, it's accepted by service providers with, and this is really exciting for a lot of our customers. It has delivery confirmation. Like imagine this, guys. Like we've been living in an ecosystem of best effort forever. Like, oh, we made a best effort to deliver your call. Well, did you deliver it or not? Well, we don't know. We don't know. We're one of the 6 carriers en route for your call going from point A to point B. We made a best effort, and that's good enough. Well, today you can actually see whether it was delivered or not. And again, it's based on the CTIA zero trust framework. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Mary? The CTIA?
Yeah, so this is, and I think here we're going to have a pretty good picture of it, but I do want to make one comment. We're thrilled to be working with Commio on this, and Commio is really, one of the first to market with this, which I think is really thrilling, and so was Commio's launch of Stir Shaken. You guys were very early on, if not one of the very first of that as well, and so we're very excited to be partnering with you to help deliver this solution to your customers, which is hopefully going to change the entire framework of the way in which people think about, okay, am I going to answer this? Am I not going to answer this? Right. I think that's really the key. So I do want to make that comment. Yeah, I think this is, the effort of bringing this whole framework to market and to bear was, it had several different drivers to it. I think if you want to go forward one slide, I think there might be just a little bit of a picture here that shows the roles that folks are playing.
Yeah.
Because this circle, right, is really what it's all about, is creating this sequence of events from the very moment when a brand identifies, I want to be able to send along something here that is going to give the maximum level of comfort for my consumer to answer the device. So from that moment all the way through to the terminating service provider, which is, as Tim, you said a little while ago, is really right now is T-Mobile, but we expect others to be joining here. We're in a great position to say this is an open ecosystem for anyone that plays any of these roles, whether you are going to do the vetting and onboarding, whether you're going to be the signing or the originating service provider to the network operator. This is an open ecosystem, but it's absolutely zero trust, right? Which says, you've got to abide by all of these rules, and these are the things that you need to be doing from a technological point of view, from a cryptological view, that are critical to really actually, achieving this objective. And so this incredible work has been underway for a long time, and I'm very proud to be a part of Numeracle, who is a critical player in this, and our founder Rebecca Johnson and the folks inside of Numeracle that were here before I was. I've only been here for about a year. Really, drove a great deal of this vision. And when you talk about in SignatureCalling, which by the way, love branding. I if I put my marketing hat on, great name, really good name for that. I'm really impressed. When I think about the ability to say, okay, we're not going to just verify who you are as a company. We're going to also make sure that you're complying with regulations from a consumer trust point of view. You're also making sure in the vetting process and that KYC activity that Tim mentioned, Tim, you talk about it, right? You've got to be in this position of saying, do I have consent from that consumer to be making these calls? What's that relationship like? And these are the kinds of things that I think in other environments where there's some vetting, it's sort of like a one and done kind of thing. Okay, yes, you are who you say you are right now. We're done. This is an ongoing activity. It requires a review of it on at least an annual basis to say, are you really who you say you are? Do you still have consent to do this? This is a level of vetting and scrutiny that makes a difference to that end result in building that trust, right? So it's it's an enormously important component to then sort of the underpins everything. So then at the moment that the the brand says, okay, I want to send this logo through, we're in the process of doing the KYC and providing and capturing that brand that they want to say. And as you talked about, Tim, you guys have got 4 of the call reasons that you're going to put there. And I mean, how fantastic is that?
Yeah.
If I got a call reason from, say, 3 out of the 6 of my unanswered calls today that simply said something,
yeah, yes.
anything, I might have been more interested in answering if not.
Right.
So then it goes through to Commio's platform, and Commio, acting as the originating service provider, will go through and look to take that information, take that brand itself, attach it to the call, and sign it with a specific certificate that the ecosystem says, okay, if it's got the certificate, it's gone through the process of vetting, and it's going to send it through to the terminating service provider. And after that, we get the data that comes back, which I agree with you. I think that's one of the biggest game changers about this, is that as a brand, being able to take that and correlate it to what's the success in this campaign that I'm achieving? What is my return on investment? How am I being able to reach my consumer, achieve my revenue projections, my answer rate, my engagement rate, whatever is the KPI? We're going to have so much more data associated with this. So no, it's a huge improvement. And it's going to change the game.
Yeah, and I think something important is, and by the way, the questions are coming in, which is great. And I'm going to ask you a few right now, because we might as well when we're on this slide.
Yeah, let's hit it.
This is where a lot of the activity is happening. I think one of the important things to understand is, first of all, there will obviously be a cost associated with every call. We don't know what the final price is going to be. But the good news is that you don't necessarily are going to be turning on a fire hose of potential costs here. You're going to be able to control which calls from which extensions. In fact, I don't even really know exactly how fine-grained the controls are, but they're pretty fine-grained. So
they're very fine-grained. Yeah, very fine-grained. Yeah,
and so you'll be in absolute control of which calls get branded and which don't. So you don't have to worry about spending a lot of money without realizing what you're doing. So the control will be there. And one of the great questions James asked, how can you elaborate on how SignatureCalling can help stop brand impersonation? And I think you just explained it. So you see on the right, you see this example. Anybody can use the old system to try to pretend. I mentioned my mother-in-law with Microsoft. You get those old signals that you don't trust, unless you see what you see on the right-hand side of the slide with the check mark, the verified business call, and the logo. This is what you'll be able to trust, right, going forward.
That's right. Yeah. And one of the things too, I want to make a quick note here is, folks that are looking at this slide, you see on the left with the big logo, which is fabulous, right in the center, that's going to be an an Android device that's showing you that.
Yeah.
On the right is an iOS device, which still, you can see that big gap in the center. Still, we have this big space of real estate that we're hoping for Apple to change the way in which they do display of the logo in the coming months. But right now, depending upon the device type that you have, it will display slightly differently.
Right.
But it is critical to be looking for these indicators of, this is really real.
That's right. And one of the nice things too, we realized too, is that once this data comes to the phone, you can also scroll over and look at the information about the brand. You can see their direct callback number, their website address, like that information comes along as part of the payload along with the logo. So I'm getting a little too deep in here, but it's pretty amazing how you can deliver that trust with this single new solution, to increase people picking up your calls. By the way, David had a great question. I knew this was going to come up. Does this replace the TransNexus Clear IP SNS solution?
So this is what I would say for that is that TransNexus is using a StirShaken solution. This does utilize StirShaken as a part of it, but it is not. It does replace that. That is correct. So that's I think, an important thing. And somebody else, I think Daniel had a question here. The vetting process is annual for an end user, for the enterprise, I should say.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And I think too, what we've been really focusing on in our press releases about SignatureCalling is that we really intend to go to market with really the first solution that has all the mobile carriers involved. So you won't have to buy a solution for, each of the three different, mobile operators, which we're really excited about. And, we've got one in there, we've got the other two coming along. Like, we really are looking at probably a Q3, ideally, how the operators are, it could change, but that's really what we're looking at for availability, as long as they get their technology up to speed and being able to support it. And Apple will wait until this really gets firmly adopted, and they'll use it to sell a couple more iPhones, right? But I think they're going to get there. They'll get the logo on there. They will.
Just a few. That's right.
They're always last. And by the way, I think a really good point here too is that, one of the key differences when we talked about, spoofing or not being able to spoof with this technology is, that the branding data can't be spoofed, but technically the number still can be. So the spoof call can be picked up by spam tagging, right? So that's one way around it.
Yeah, and that's in the current world, right? In this world, you really can. It's completely protected. So this is one of the things where for all of the calls that you're outbound placing, right?
Yeah.
If you're an enterprise today and you're hearing in your head, okay, they don't have all three operators yet, so I'm going to wait. What I would suggest is that the better way to approach this is to think, okay, for every call that's going to ultimately land on, say, a T-Mobile device, that's going to give you the unspoofable number, the unspoofable brand information, all that completely.
Right.
But for those calls that are landing still on AT&T and Verizon, for example, until they join, what we would recommend certainly is to think about, well, those could still be actually mislabeled as spam or scam likely. And so it's important to think about the number reputation that you have and possibly, register those so that they do not get mislabeled. Those numbers, though, when they're being made, those numbers can be spoofed. You can have a name being made up and spoofed on top of that. So they're not being protected. So it's looking at your outbound calling in a holistic manner. And I always ask the question, well, why would, what number of outbound calls do you not want to have, this best possible, example of? If it's only a third that's going to get the best treatment, take it for now. And as you go, just continue to add as we add more terminating service providers. So to me, it's a critical component to doing that math on when do I start doing this? Right. I say immediately is my reaction. Give the best possible experience to even if it's just to one of your outbound customers, that one call is going to make a difference. And that's important too. I think, Tim, you mentioned this. You're only going to get charged for the one that's got the brand on it.
Right.
That's one of the key things. So if it doesn't get delivered, with the component pieces of it that have been talked about that are on that screenshot, then you're not going to get charged for it. So I think that's important. So if it goes to an AT&T or Verizon, it just gets dropped, you're not going to get charged.
That's right. Yeah. And I think some other questions came into do people I think people really love seeing that big logo there. It almost looks like it's an app that's powering it. But the good news is your customers do not have to install an app, right? It just comes through the native call display.
That's right.
On the phones. And also, I've never seen a call with a logo like that before. Is it live in production? And you already mentioned it is live and it's working on T-Mobile, and we're waiting for Verizon, AT&T to come alongside. So that's great. That's kind of all of our questions. But I will say this, I think we're super excited at Commio. People sort of sometimes misinterpret who we are. Like, we have customers who use us to place calls, right? So we don't actually place any calls, our customers do. And it goes through our network, and then it goes to the terminating provider. So we're the connection point in the middle. And what's exciting about it was, well, first of all, I remember when our CTO, Mike Tyndall, told us about SignatureCalling. It seems like a decade ago. It wasn't that long ago.
It feels that way.
It does. And we're like, we want to get this turned on as fast as possible. And there was, growing pains, just like with we could do a whole webinar, which we've done, about the text messaging side of KYC and registering your brands. And, hey, we lost a lot of customers over it because they were like, I'm done with all this regulation is crazy. I want to go back and, do X, Y, and Z. Well, they always come back eventually because people love messaging, but it's both. And it's like, people always think that messaging is going to replace calling. It never does. They work together. They have their strengths and weaknesses for what, what they're for. But what we love at Commio is we want to be that solution in the middle that can restore that trust. So we started with SignatureCalling, and made sure we had all the right things in place to giving the right attestation to the right callers for the right use cases, and really cutting down on calls that, that our customers make sure that they're adhering to the do not call list, and all those good things. So now this comes along, and we were very interested very quickly, because we want to shut down the ability for people to spoof and spam, not follow do not call, and put them into a trusted ecosystem where the calls are finally trustworthy. And we're almost there. And when you see all the things that go into it, and by the way, this is really meant for sort of that mid to upper tier brand markets out there, folks that have a brand that they really want to protect. And it's like every call center that really wants to see their call rates be as high as possible, and high value calls, think hospitals, all those use cases. This is what they want to be able to get around all the problems they've had with our ecosystem that we're all playing in. We're trying to make it better. So I'm super excited to see all this come together. And we've already had so many brands register themselves to enable text messaging. We mentioned when we were preparing for the call about TCR, the campaign registry. I heard a lot of people, the hackles just went up when I said that out loud. TCR does fill a vital role, but we're going to see some very similar things roll in as we go through the process of how do you vet a brand, how do you register it, and all those things. So, and again, there'll be growing pains, and we'll get this figured out. You'll have total control. You'll be able to get registered and get started, and you'll be able to start seeing things go in the right direction. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, we've had a couple more questions, and I'll look to answer some of those as they come in.
Sure.
And we've had a couple questions come in on the Transnexus Clear IP, and we're happy to do a separate call on that if needed. But when we think about the benefits to the businesses you just talked about, Tim, I think it's really critical to think about starting with that brand safety and that brand value, and the protection of that is really critical. In this ecosystem, Numeracle role is played. We're doing the vetting and onboarding, which had been one of the questions, and the other question had been AT&T and Verizon. I think Tim, you said it very well earlier. We're hoping this year, for both of them. I think Verizon will probably be ahead of AT&T, but this ecosystem and its ability to do the end-to-end security, I think, is really encapsulates all of the benefits, right? I just think it's giving the brand the most flexibility in creating that trust back into the consumer's hands. And you can get such flexibility with the ability to brand and the call reason. And that, I think, is a really enormously valuable activity for the customers that are really going to consider this. And having the KYC be reaffirmed on a regular basis, I think, is going to be really critical to ensuring that it maintains its level of integrity as we go forward. I think that's got to be one of the biggest benefits, is that, look, it is not one and done. We're going to continuously do this as we go forward. So there's a lot of benefits, I think, as people think about, okay, what's my strategy going to be given this new technology? What do I want to be doing? How do I dial this in? There's a lot of ROI for this. And it's changing, I think, from my perspective, the way in which people can contemplate just the ROI in general for this as a marketing strategy. I mean, I'm sure you're hearing the same thing, right? It's got to be the same thing.
100%. And it's like, we've been telling people, what I found interesting, Mary, was like pre-pandemic at Commio, we delivered almost all of our calls to office buildings and desk phones. And it seemed like for some reason when that pandemic hit, everybody went home, and most people, I think, well, not most, a lot of people are still at home. We actually saw our call volumes shift to the mobile operators. And which is why it's kind of exciting to say, well, all right, we used to be able to push calls down these tubes, and we had no idea whether they were reaching people or not. We had no data. We could basically get it, do a SIP trace and see which carriers, handled the call along the way, which was very helpful for diagnosing problems. But now, as today in the US, most of the calls terminating with a mobile provider with this technology. And yes, it's going to cost more to deliver a branded call, but we'll be able to control that and then confirm call delivery. As a marketer, that gets me super excited. And as people who own a business, you want to make sure that you're getting that ROI, and you'll be able to get it. You'll be able to get it.
And I think, and it really, it's funny, I've had this conversation recently with someone who has a very small business, and it's a home services business. They have just 3 or 4 employees, but they want to make sure that their calls are answered. And it is an interesting dichotomy of, you can definitely see the argument for a very large enterprise, but there's even, I think, value to the very small enterprise that, like, I need to really have this call answered. I'm coming over to your house. I'm going to be there in 20 minutes. I need you to answer your call. Right? I think that's that kind of, you just never know. It's a fascinating, I think from a marketing point of view, it's a really interesting point of view, really, to think about it.
That's about, right. Yeah. And that's one of our biggest customers. They do, plumbers, electricians. They have a platform for that, and they were the first ones to rate. What are you doing, Commio? We got to, they're going to be in our pilot for sure. So anytime you got to be able to reach somebody with lots of trust, it's with a couple $1,000 service call on the line, you absolutely, is it worth the price per call? It's going to absolutely be worth it, and you'll be able to add it right to your data set. Yes, we called, they picked up the phone, we got charged X, it worked. There you go. It's perfect.
Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah, and just to reiterate too, we already kind of looked at a couple of these examples, but really close up. This is real calls we're able to generate out of Commio. In fact, we're starting to use it to make calls to people to say, hey, did you see that pop up on your phone? We know you're on T-Mobile. How cool was that? Would you like to have that? Like, we're just starting to sort of do those kinds of things. So
that's a real screenshot. That's the real deal right there.
That's right. So that little check mark next to the number, it's the confirmation of that certification status. And then, of course, you get, even T-Mobile in this case is putting their stamp of approval that we went through this process, that we verified the origination, that it's not spoofed, okay, and it's a verified business call. And then I love that we basically, you as the brand get to pick these. I know that there's already like a couple dozen of these that have been sort of approved, but you can actually come up with your own verbiage and get that approved.
Yeah.
In this case, we're like, Commio customer support call, Commio, whatever it is. So why they're calling. How cool is that? And then, of course, this big logo, which, as you mentioned, Android today, iOS hopefully sooner. And again, no app is necessary. No app is necessary.
And I think that's the thing, right? I think that's the question I've gotten asked the most when I've talked about this. It's just like, well, wait a minute, what have I got to download? I'm just like, nothing.
Right. It's
just going to come right to you. I don't have to do anything to my device right now.
Right.
It's the best.
Which is taking all my energy not to start talking about RCS business messaging, because everything we talk about with branded calling works for RCS business messaging. But we'll do a separate webinar on that. But seriously,
I'm happy to help.
As a big brand, you'll be able to get yourself completely vetted with the mobile operators, and it looks like it's going to work for voice, for branded calling, as well as RCS business messaging. And 2025 is the year both of these things are coming together. How cool is that?
And can you imagine, from a marketer's point of view, it's just like, wow, I can have one picture here and one picture here, and they're going to be the exact same thing. It's the dream of being able to, convey that imagery and that brand, that brand identity. It's huge.
That's right. That's right. I think all the marketers that are leveraging omnichannel, this is your year to shine with your C-suite, because you're going to be able to roll in there with a solution. You're going to have to pay a little bit, boss, but look at what we're going to get out of it.
Right.
And especially for the use cases, contact centers, anybody who's running a platform, customer experience platforms, this is your holy grail, which is exciting.
Absolutely.
So with that, Mary, you said we had a couple more questions come in, right?
Yeah, I've seen a couple more come in. Is the customizable reason completely dynamic, or is it a predefined list? As Tim mentioned, it is customizable. It's not entirely dynamic per se. Right. You would, when it's being grabbed from, the way to think about it is when it's being grabbed from the repository that is being maintained on behalf of that brand on the Numeracle platform, and is utilized by Commio to then send the call forward. You're having a list that's being attached and tied, but you can have one number with multiple different call reasons. That's fine. So imagine it's the kind of thing where it can be updated very quickly. It's not a real-time dynamic solution, but it is, very much something you should think about. I can create what I need to in messaging and have it be, displayed in the way that I need to. So the answer is it is certainly customizable. It's not completely dynamic, and it needs to be approved. But yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, it's my understanding you'll probably be able to go into the Commio platform. You'll be able to choose which
That's right.
extension has which naming convention, and then you'll be able to submit others for approval. Of course, we have no idea how long that would take. We hope it would be fairly quick. But I have seen big lists of the pre-approved ones that all the basics are already covered and will be instantly approved. It's just a matter of any custom ones you want to do, which we would say we wouldn't want to dissuade you from coming up with something custom. Sorry, guys, my hour break there on my notifications just turned off.
It's all good.
Yeah, so it's be able to customize which calls are branded, obviously which ones you're going to pay for, and then get approved, get the data whether the calls were delivered or not.
There was another question here about the solution applicable to call originating from both local DIDs and toll-free numbers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no. It's a matter of ensuring that you have the authority to utilize the number and stipulate that it is yours to be utilizing. So that's really the only stipulation.
Yeah.
And then the brand receiving the delivery confirmations is going to be through your portal. That's right, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine it'll be an API driven piece of data. You'll be able to see it in the platform as well as deliver it into your own system. A lot of our customers only use us through APIs, so that'll be something that'll be passable between us and into your whatever system you use for reporting. Absolutely. Yeah.
There was a question on what the options are for a customer that doesn't have their logo properly trademarked. That is something that we're anticipating and having to go through, because there is vetting on the trademark, on what the logo is that's going to be there. And so we're anticipating that being something that we have to work out with the brands. There's not a quick and easy answer to that one. Because we were doing this research in the beginning of the year, and it's just like there's a zillion banks that have got the same name, So it's right. It's one of those things where you have to we have to work with the entity to to help you do that. So that's certainly something that we anticipate. There's not an easy answer. We'll be helping them through that one.
Yeah. If you haven't done it yet and you have a logo, just go get it trademarked.
And you might need to be, and trademarking doesn't take a long time. The biggest issue that you face is naming, and can you get the same name for the look and feel? That's really where things I think get a little ugly. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. The deal. Yep. I think we've answered most of those. I don't think we've got any more. I think we're all right.
Great. Well, Mary, this has been awesome. We're so excited to be bringing this into the marketplace. As we said, it's not quite yet available, but we would recommend go over to our website, commio.com, look under voice, get over to the branded calling page. This will all be in the email we send you. And if you're really interested, sign up for our pilot program. So we're just starting to vet the people that have signed up. We'd like to have more. And small, medium, large, whatever it is, we want to have a representative sample so we can get feedback and enable folks early on. But go ahead, don't hold back from signing up for that, and you'll also start to receive more information from us as we can keep you up to date as things go along. And you'll be hearing from Numeracle, Mary, other folks over there, as well as our team as we get through the rest of the year and this comes online. So I want to say super thanks to the entire Numeracle team. You made this integration really smooth, and we're excited to have it out there into the marketplace. And we're
thrilled to be partnering with you guys, and this is very exciting. So thanks so much, Tim, and thanks for this. This was super. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, you're welcome. And again, everybody else out there, you're all going to get a copy of this video and some other information either later today or early tomorrow. And like I said, don't hold back from replying to the email. If you have any questions, I'll get it to all the right people, and we'll make sure we get you answers. So with that, signing off from Raleigh today, and Mary enjoying the great weather up there in Washington, D.C. area. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk again real soon.